into your power. You can't pick and choose what you're responsible for feeling and what somebody else is responsible for making you feel, when you really want to come into your power. That's why I like to use the term, I made myself feel upset. I made myself feel mad. I made myself feel depressed. I made myself feel alone. I don't deny my feelings. If I'm not happy about something, I'm not one of these people who try to be so positive that no matter what's going on, they say, oh, it's fine, it's great, I love it. But if that's what you really feel, wonderful. I don't feel that way all the time. But what I do in order to empower myself is I say, I'm making myself really mad at you right now. I'm really upsetting myself about this right now. I'm really making myself jealous in this situation right here. I'm really making myself feel insecure. See, I'm owning the feeling. I'm not pretending I don't feel what I feel, but I'm empowering myself by completely taking responsibility for me being the one that's making myself see it that way.
That's what I'm saying.
So, you know.
It sounds to me like it really is not an issue of surrender, which to me sounds like sacrifice. It's a matter of using your will to engage your mind. So it's not a matter of surrendering, it's a matter of not thinking these things and using your will to think these things.
And if that's the way that it makes most sense to you to make you feel peace about doing it, then you know that's the correct interpretation of that for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But for me, the word surrender has a very pleasing energy. And surrender doesn't mean that I'm weak and I've given in to a situation. Surrender just means I'm willing to accept my truth as true. You know, the thing that's such a trip is that one thing about being playing a teacher role is that you really are in a learner role more than most people. And then a teacher will tell you that. And after a while, if you do it for years, you'll see patterns over and over and over. Like I see patterns in people that come through that door over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And what I've learned, that one of the biggest illusions is, number one, is that we think we're different. That's illusion number one. Is that somehow everybody thinks they're different. Hold on. Let me talk. Okay. And no, but like I said, I'm going to move on after I said this next thing. Okay. There are people who reach their limit and people who haven't. That's what I've noticed. And people who reach their limit, they're hanging on every word that the truth says. And they're ready to go out and do it at all costs because they've reached their limit. They've had it. And then the other group of people, life is kind of, it ain't so exciting, but it's not so pitiful. And so they usually just listen. But then when they go out into the world, they don't apply anything that they've heard because they're not pressed to do that because they haven't reached their limit yet. So a lot of times what I found, if you will let people be and bless them in who they are, and hold space for them, they'll crash faster. And then they'll go ahead and they'll hit their limit. Like when it was time for my marriage to end, and I was ready to choose for peace in that situation, and I was studying the truth, and I didn't want to condemn the other person, but I knew I had really reached my limit. Do you think I would have argued 2 seconds about the furniture, the car, the house, anything? When you're ready to leave, you don't go through all that stuff. You know, when you reach your limit, like when you reach your limit of a job that you know you've reached your limit in, you make a change. Whenever you reach your limit, you do whatever is necessary to make a change, and you'll let go of anything that keeps you from making that change. But as long as you got all these conditions before you can let yourself go, you're not really ready to let yourself go and do it really differently yet, because you can always reproduce a house. You can always reproduce stuff. And if you can certainly reproduce people, there are billions on the planet. So the whole idea that you can't even have another relationship that could be right for you is crazy. This is a place of abundance. We get endless opportunities to have what would make us happy here. It's just our ego that tells us it's got to be this person or this situation or this circumstance. But when you reach your limit, you'll be going, what you said, what the book said? I can't wait to, what? This is what I want. Okay, it's just 2 uses of time, and I've got to decide whether I'm going to listen to my loving self that really wants to free me, or the part of me that doesn't love me, that's always trying to jam me up, and all I got to do is learn how to listen to that part, and it's going to teach me how to listen to it. Yeah. So that's the thing that's so cool about a spiritual path. Anybody on a spiritual path, not just the Course in Miracles, anybody on a spiritual path, and they've chosen a spiritual path, there is no spiritual path that is not giving you instructions about how to have more peace. There is no path you're going to get on that's not going to be trying to tell you some things to do in order to make your life better. So what's the problem? I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm analyzing it. I'm philosophizing about it. I'm thinking about doing it. I'm comparing it to what I learned over here. I'm comparing it to what my parents taught me. And I think that somehow or another that's going to make the difference. The difference is going to be the actual application of the idea. The application of the idea. What is that? Whatever the instruction is that your path tells you or your guidance tells you, do that. Like if I'm really, really upset and my path says, breathe and ask for another way to look at this. Okay, I'm ready to cuss you out, right? My path says, breathe and ask for another way to look at it. So you just upset me. I'm getting ready to go off on you. I go, I want another way to look at this. I want another way to look at you. I want another way to look. What did I just do? In spite of my programming, it wanted to attack you. They told me to do what the world would tell me to do, which is to see you as the problem. What did I do? My path said, breathe and ask for another way to look at it. So when I actually apply the idea, guess what happens? You breathe and you do get another way to look at it, and you don't end up perpetuating the situation and making it worse than that. The worst time in the world to speak is when you're angry and upset. That's when just when your perception is most distorted, is when you're angry and upset. So if you could just get to the point you shut the hell up when you are angry and upset, you would think that the whole world had transformed in front of your eyes. But most people feel most self-righteous when they're mad. And that's when they're the most incorrect in their perception of what's going on. So how do you use your teaching? My teaching says, Earl, when you're full of anger and depression and guilt, your perception is distorted. So that would be a good time to breathe, be quiet, and ask Spirit for guidance. So if I was to breathe, be quiet, ask Spirit for guidance. Me and my partner are having an argument. If I was to say, hold up just a second, let me back off for a minute, let me take a breath, let me walk around the block for a minute, let me ask for another way to look at it. Do you really want to join? Do you really want to solve this situation? They say yes. Okay, what we need to do then is get back to a place that we're not so charged. So let me breathe. Let me go away for a second. Let me breathe for a second. Let me take a walk for a second. Then we'll come back together with our goal. And let's just say we'll make an agreement that if you're about to share something with me, but you got to be right, that you're not going to share it. But if you're going to share something with me and you're willing to be wrong, if you're willing that might not be the way you made it up to be, then I want you to share with me everything you want to say. Come up with some little guidelines from your path, and you'll go right through the problem that you think you're having. So again, if you're having conflict, and it's a conflict that's recurring, you have not changed your mind, you're not using your path, you're not using a new perception, you're using your own past learning, and you're being reactionary, and you're not choosing for peace. Is that tough at first? Doggone right it's tough. Why? Because we've been programmed, it's all about attack, defense, attack, defense, attack, defense, attack, defense. So if you learn it's about attack, defense, attack, defense, attack, defense, and then you learn a teaching that says it's about peace and defenselessness, peace and defenselessness, peace and defenselessness, well, the part of you that's learned how to attack is going to say, hell no, I don't want to do that. So the first time you try it is going to be the hardest time to try it. It's when you're most angry and you're used to just going off and being upset, and you go, I'm not going to attack this time. I'm not going to do what I've done this before. I'm not going to project like I have before. And then watch and see what begins to happen in those situations, because the outer is a reflection of the inner, and since you're no longer attacking and defending, your reality will begin to do less and less attack and defense in your perception. But a person will never learn that until they do it themselves. They won't learn it by listening to me talk about it, because they'll use their own experience to validate why that doesn't work. And so they'll say, well, this can't work because of this, and this can't work because of that, and this can't. That's because you're using the past. If you were to use your truth right now, you would get the result of your truth right now. And if you're not getting the result of your truth right now, you are not using your truth right now. I don't have to stop. It's 2 minutes after 2. So we acknowledge yourself. Thank you very much. Let me do the love offering right quick and all right. Take a breath. Take a breath, 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 take a breath. It's time to apply your truth right now. Whatever you see as your truth, it's time to apply it right now. Make a decision whether you're going to use time to free you or you're going to use time to delay you. Because there's only two uses of time, two uses of time, two uses of time. Woo! So either I'm going to use time for love or either I'm going to use time for fear. And all you have to do is ask this question right now. What would it take for my peace to show up in ways beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for my peace to show up beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for my peace to show up in ways beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for my peace to show up in ways beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for my peace to show up in ways beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for my peace to show up in ways beyond my wildest dreams? What would it take for peace to show up beyond my wildest dreams? So this week, live in the question, live in the question, live in the question, live in the question. Let go of your conclusionary mind and be willing for things to get to you in ways you never dreamed of. And tell yourself, I want another way of looking at this. I want another way of looking at this, and breathe. So when you get upset, breathe and say, I want another way of looking at this. What would it take for another way to look at this to show up? Would you acknowledge yourself for showing up? Appreciate y'all. Thank you for helping me remember. And don't forget, if you get a chance, go online and send me some questions.